You just bought a brand new Honda Civic for $25,000. You're feeling pretty good about yourself, right? You avoided the luxury car trap, you didn't get the BMW, you were responsible, you got something practical, something affordable. Your payment's only $450 a month. That's nothing compared to your coworker who just bought a Tesla for $50,000. But here's what's wild. 5 years from now, you're gonna look back and realize that your smart $25,000 purchase actually cost you more money than if you had bought that $50,000 car. And I'm not talking about some theoretical calculation. I'm talking about actual dollars that left your bank account. That sounds completely backward, doesn't it? How could spending double the money actually save you money? Well, stick around, because what I'm about to show you is going to completely change how you think about car buying forever. My name is Rayhan, and I spend way too much time thinking about why people who think they're making smart financial decisions are actually bleeding money without realizing it. If you're someone who feels like you're doing everything right with your money but still can't seem to get ahead, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Because today, we're going to break down one of the biggest financial traps that catches even the smartest people. And it all starts with a fundamental misunderstanding of how car ownership actually works. Look, I get it. Personal finance advice is everywhere. Don't buy a new car, buy used, keep your car payment under $300, avoid luxury brands. And on the surface, that sounds totally reasonable. That sounds like exactly what a responsible person should do. So you go out and you buy a sensible car. Maybe it's a Honda Civic for $25,000. Maybe it's a Toyota Corolla for $24,000. You finance it for 5 years at, let's say, 6% interest. Your monthly payment is $483. You feel smart, you feel responsible. You're not one of those people who overspends on cars. Meanwhile, your friend buys a used Tesla Model 3 for $50,000, or maybe a certified pre-owned Lexus, same 5-year loan, same 6% interest rate. Their payment, $966 a month, literally double yours. Everyone tells them they're crazy. Why would you spend that much on a car? And honestly, when you look at those numbers side by side, it seems obvious who made the better choice. Here's the thing though, here's what nobody talks about. Those monthly payments, they're only one piece of the puzzle, and focusing only on the monthly payment is exactly how car dealerships have been separating people from their money for decades. Because when you actually look at the total cost of ownership over 5 years, something really interesting happens. Something that most people never calculate because they're too focused on that monthly number. Let me show you the actual math, because this is where it gets really interesting. Your $25,000 Honda Civic, 5 years of payments at $483 a month. That's $28,980 in total payments, plus you probably put down $2,000, so you're at $30,980 total. Now, what's that car worth after 5 years? According to Kelley Blue Book data, a Honda Civic depreciates about 50 to 52% in the first 5 years. So your $25,000 Civic is now worth roughly $12,000, maybe $13,000 if you really took care of it and the market's good. So let's do the math. You paid $30,980, the car is worth $12,000, your net cost of ownership is $18,980. Now let's look at the $50,000 Tesla Model 3. 5 years of payments at $966 a month, that's $57,960 in total payments, plus the same $2,000 down payment, so $59,960 total. What's it worth after 5 years? Here's where things get wild. According to actual resale data, Teslas are depreciating at about 35 to 40% over 5 years. Let's be conservative and say 40%. That means your $50,000 Tesla is worth about $30,000 after 5 years. Net cost of ownership, you paid $59,960. The car is worth $30,000. Your net cost is $29,960. Now you might be thinking, okay, Rayhan, but $29,960 is still more than $18,980. The cheaper car is still cheaper. And you'd be right, if we stopped here. But we're not stopping here, because we haven't talked about maintenance, we haven't talked about fuel, and we definitely haven't talked about insurance. And this is where the entire calculation flips upside down. Let's start with maintenance and repairs, because this is the part that absolutely destroys people. That Honda Civic, for the first 3 years, you're probably fine. You're under warranty. Oil changes, tire rotations, maybe some brake pads, let's say $500 a year. That's $1,500 for the first 3 years. But years 4 and 5, this is when things start breaking. According to RepairPal data, the average annual repair cost for a Honda Civic after year 3 jumps to about $800 to $1,000. And that's just average. That doesn't include the times you need new tires, $600, new brakes all around, $400, a new battery, $150, or God forbid something major like a transmission service, $300, or AC repair, $500. Let's be conservative and say you spend $1,000 a year in years 4 and 5. That's another $2,000. Total maintenance over 5 years, $3,500. Now the Tesla. Here's what most people don't realize about electric vehicles. There's no oil changes, no transmission fluid, no spark plugs, no timing belt, no exhaust system. The brake pads last forever because of regenerative braking. Consumer Reports found that EV maintenance costs are about 50% lower than gas cars. Over 5 years, you're looking at maybe $1,500 in total maintenance. Tires, cabin air filters, brake fluid flush, that's basically it. So right there, you just saved $2,000 in maintenance. Our gap is now $11,000 instead of $11,000 plus the $2,000 maintenance difference, so really about a $9,000 gap between the two cars. But we're not done, not even close. Let's talk about fuel. This is the big one that people consistently underestimate. The average American drives about 12,000 miles per year. The Honda Civic gets about 35 mpg combined. Gas prices vary, but let's use a conservative average of $3.50 per gallon. 12,000 miles divided by 35 mpg equals 343 gallons per year. 343 times $3.50 equals $1,200 per year. Over 5 years, $6,000. Now the Tesla. At 12,000 miles per year, you need about 3,000 kilowatts. If you charge at home, where electricity averages about 0.14 kilowatts per hour, and that's being generous, many places are cheaper, that's $420 per year. Over 5 years, $2,100. Fuel savings, $3,900 over 5 years. Now our math is getting interesting. $25,000 Civic total cost is $18,980 plus $3,500 maintenance plus $6,000 fuel is $28,480. $50,000 Tesla total cost is $33,960 plus $1,500 maintenance plus $2,100 is $33,560. Okay, so the Tesla is still more expensive by about $5,000 over 5 years. But look at how much that gap has closed. We went from an $11,000 difference in net ownership cost to only $5,000 when you factor in the real costs. Now you might be thinking, all right, Rayhan, the Tesla is still more expensive. Your title is clickbait. Hold on, because we haven't talked about insurance, and we definitely haven't talked about opportunity cost and depreciation curves, and this is where things get absolutely wild. Most people assume that insuring a $50,000 car costs way more than insuring a $25,000 car. And yes, it is more expensive, but not as much as you'd think, and the gap narrows significantly over time. According to Bankrate's data, insurance on a new Honda Civic averages about $1,900 per year. Insurance on a Tesla Model 3 averages about $2,400 per year. That's a $500 difference annually. Over 5 years, that's an extra $2,500 for the Tesla. So now our real total cost comparison: Civic $28,480 plus $9,500 insurance is $37,980. Tesla, $33,560 plus $12,000 insurance is $45,560. The gap is now $7,580 over 5 years. That's $126 per month in true cost of ownership. But here's where psychology gets fascinating, and here's where we need to talk about what happens after 5 years. Most people think about depreciation as this linear thing, like the car just loses value at the same rate every year. But that's not how it works at all. Depreciation is a curve. Cars lose most of their value in the first 3 years, and then the depreciation rate slows way down. Here's what actually happens. Your $25,000 Honda Civic loses about 50% of its value in 5 years, like we said. But here's the thing. Most of that depreciation happened in years 1, 2, and 3. By year 5, it's only losing maybe 8 to 10% per year. But you know what happens in year 6, year 7? You're driving a car that's worth $12,000, then $10,000, then $8,000, and every year you're still spending that $1,000+ on maintenance. Your fuel costs haven't changed. Your insurance has only dropped slightly. Now let's look at the Tesla trajectory. Yes, it depreciated 40% in 5 years. It's worth $30,000. But here's what's wild about the EV market right now, and specifically about Tesla. The depreciation curve flattens out significantly after year 5. Why? Because Tesla's battery technology is good for 300,000 to 500,000 miles. The cars are getting regular software updates that make them better over time. There's a massive and growing market for used EVs as more people realize they want to switch but can't afford a new one. So in year 6, Tesla might only depreciate another 8%. It's worth $27,600. Your maintenance costs are still minimal. Your fuel costs are still a fraction of the Civic. But here's where this gets really interesting. Let's say you decide to sell both cars after 7 years instead of 5. The Civic, which was worth $12,000 at year 5, is now worth maybe $8,000 at year 7. You've spent another $2,000 in maintenance over those 2 years, another $2,400 in gas. That's $4,400 in costs to get $8,000 in value. Net, $3,600 returned. The Tesla, worth $30,000 at year 5, is now worth maybe $25,000 at year 7. You've spent maybe $600 in maintenance over those 2 years, another $840 in electricity. That's $1,440 in costs to get $25,000 in value. Net, $23,560 returned. Do you see what's happening here? The longer you own the more expensive car, the better the math gets, because depreciation is slowing down while your operating costs stay low. This is the trap that keeps people broke. Focusing on the monthly payment instead of total cost of ownership is exactly what car dealerships want you to do. They literally train their salespeople to ask, "What monthly payment are you comfortable with?" Because they know that if they can get you thinking in terms of monthly payments, they can make you focus on the wrong thing. You walk in thinking, "I can afford $400 a month." They show you a car with a $400 payment. You feel good, but you never calculated that you're going to spend $800 a month when you factor in gas, maintenance, and insurance. Meanwhile, someone who walks in and says, "I want to know the total cost of ownership over the time I plan to own this car," is asking the right question. They're thinking like an investor, not like a consumer. And here's the thing, this applies to more than just Civics versus Teslas. This applies to buying a $15,000 used car with 80,000 miles that's going to nickel and dime you to death in repairs versus buying a $30,000 certified pre-owned car with a warranty. This applies to buying cheap appliances that break versus good ones that last. This applies to buying cheap shoes that wear out in 6 months versus good shoes that last years. The pattern is the same. Cheap upfront costs with high ongoing costs versus higher upfront costs with low ongoing costs. And the reason people keep choosing the cheap option isn't because they're stupid, it's because they're focused on what they can see right now, the price tag, the monthly payment, instead of what's invisible, the total cost over time. Now, look, I'm not saying everyone should go out and buy a $50,000 car. That's not the point. The point is this. When you're making a financial decision, especially a big one, you need to look at the total cost of ownership, not just the sticker price.
You need to ask yourself, what will I spend on this over the entire time I own it? What will it be worth when I'm done with it? What are the hidden costs I'm not seeing? Because here's what happens when you don't ask these questions. You end up in this cycle where you're constantly spending money on things that are costing you way more than you realize. You buy the cheap car and spend $800 a month when you add everything up. You could have bought the better car and spent $900 a month, but gotten something worth $10,000 more when you're done with it. You buy the cheap laptop for $400 and replace it every 2 years. You could have bought the $1,200 laptop that lasts 6 years. You rent the cheap apartment to save money but spend $200 a month on gas commuting and another $150 a month eating out because the kitchen is terrible. You could have spent $300 more on rent and saved $350 a month on everything else. This is why people who think they're being frugal often end up spending more money than people who invest in quality, because being frugal without wisdom is just cheap, and cheap is expensive in the long run. So here's what you need to do next time you're making a major purchase. Step 1, stop thinking about monthly payments. Seriously, that number is designed to manipulate you. Instead, calculate the total amount you'll pay over the loan period. Step 2, research the depreciation curve. What will this thing be worth in 3 years, 5 years, 7 years? Subtract that from your total cost. That's your real cost. Step 3, calculate all the operating costs: fuel, maintenance, insurance, repairs, everything. Add those up over your ownership period. Step 4, add your total cost and your operating costs, then subtract the resale value. That's your true cost of ownership. Step 5, compare options using this real number, not the sticker price or monthly payment. And here's the thing that's going to blow your mind when you start doing this. 9 times out of 10, the slightly more expensive option is actually cheaper when you run the real numbers. The $800 vacuum that lasts 10 years is cheaper than the $200 vacuum you replace every 2 years. The $60 jeans that last 5 years are cheaper than the $30 jeans that last 6 months. The $50,000 reliable car is cheaper than the $25,000 car that bleeds you dry in repairs. Quality isn't expensive, cheap is expensive. You just have to train yourself to see the difference. Look, I know this is a lot of math. I know it's easier to just look at the price tag and make a decision based on what you can afford right now. But here's the reality. If you want to actually build wealth, if you want to stop feeling like you're working hard but going nowhere, you have to start thinking differently about how you spend money. You have to start seeing purchases as investments with returns. You have to start calculating total cost of ownership. You have to start thinking long-term instead of short-term, because the people who build wealth, they're not necessarily making more money than you. They're just making smarter decisions about how they spend the money they have. So the next time you're about to make a big purchase, take out a calculator and run the real numbers. You might be surprised at what you find. If this video changed how you think about buying cars or anything else, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe, because we've got a lot more of this coming your way. Drop a comment and let me know what's the biggest cheap purchase you made that ended up costing you more in the long run. I'll see you in the next one.